Hello, everyone, and welcome to the online presentation for Social Work 106, Introduction to Social Welfare. My name is Bill Galic, and I'll be your instructor for the semester. I think you'll find that the material in this course is very thought-provoking and interesting, whether you're intending to be a social work major or you're taking this course for a GER credit. The material that we do cover is something that is very timely. This particular time with the COVID pandemic and the recent presidential election and new administration coming into Washington now, along with the new Congress, it's rest assured that there's going to be some very interesting times ahead in terms of social welfare and for many of the social issues that we'll be touching on during the course of the semester. And so part of what we'll be doing, or I'll be doing rather, is encouraging you to connect what you're reading about with what's going on in the news and the world around you. But more about that in a few moments. For those of you that have not had an online course before, I really strongly encourage you to stop and take a look around the course. Obviously, you found your way into the course or you wouldn't be listening to this lecture. There is an item in the course menu called Start Here that I encourage you strongly to work through, which will give you information that will help you navigate your way around the course during the course of the semester. Even if you've had other online courses with other instructors, it's very useful for you to take a look at the Start Here menu item in this course because each of us do things a little bit differently, and this will help clear up a lot of confusion that might occur as to where to find things and how to get from one thing to another. My name is Bill Galic, as I mentioned earlier, and here's my contact information. The university prefers us to use the alaska.edu email address in communicating. However, I can also assure you that my Comcast address is private, at least in terms of individuals who might be looking at my email in my home because I am alone in the house and no one else accesses this email address. Likewise with leaving messages on my cell phone and my home phone. Now you notice the area code in my home phone is not Alaska, and that's because I reside in Northeast Indiana. I moved down here about 5 or 6 years ago, although I've been teaching for the University of Alaska for over 30 years now, in fact. So I had the opportunity to continue teaching online when I moved, and I've been feeling very privileged to be able to continue providing education for social work students. Keep in mind, please, if you do reach me by telephone, that I am 4 hours ahead of you. I'm in the Eastern time zone here. And so if you're working late at night and you think, I have a question I want to ask Bill about, if it's real late at night, please postpone it until the next day because I'm probably asleep. My cell phone also is a text-capable number, and so for urgent issues, you can reach me there. The university, again, prefers us not to text back and forth between student and professor, but that is available to you if some sort of an issue comes up that requires immediate attention. A little bit about myself. I have a bachelor's degree from Michigan State University. That bachelor's is in social work. And I got a master's degree from Florida State University quite a number of years ago, after about 8 years in the field. Since that time, I've been working continuously in the social work field in areas including public welfare and food stamp certification, child welfare, residential care and treatment for children, outpatient mental health, and also child protection, both in Florida and in Alaska. I retired from the Office of Children's Services in 2014 and moved down to Indiana a year later to be closer to family primarily. So I have a broad exposure to the social work field, also including a number of volunteer experiences over the course of the years that I think helps me to be someone who's very capable and useful to you in bringing this material across to you. About the textbooks that you'll be looking at, there are 3 books that you're going to need for the course. This is the cover of the 7th and latest edition of the textbook that we study from, A New History of Social Welfare. This textbook was published in 2013, and I'm not sure there's going to be any updates on this as we've been waiting a long time for a new edition. In fact, I've even written to the authors about it and haven't had any encouraging words back from them about a new edition. But this textbook is full of very, very good information, although it does, because of the date you see, ends in the second administration of the Obama years. I'll add some things in the last lecture to bring us up to date as well as some of the material that we'll be covering during the course of the semester. So rest assured you'll have up-to-date information in terms of social welfare programming in the United States. But most of the course you'll see, if you look at the syllabus, is structured around this textbook, which basically is an opportunity to walk through the history of social welfare programming dating back into the ancient times, actually, although we don't spend much time in those years. But really, from the time the colonists hit the shores of America and forward is where most of our attention is placed. And you'll see how the values projected and lived and the political attitudes and ideas and tensions of the time have impacted social welfare programming throughout the history of this nation and continue to do so today. Phyllis Day writes from a feminist perspective, you'll notice, and so she may irritate some of you. I found even my female students sometimes get irritated with her kind of strident way of putting things. But trust me, she has a very good perspective on things, and it's very useful to listen to the way she sees things as we look at social welfare programs. She mentions early on in the textbook, and it's something that's very true, is that social welfare really is a women's issue in many, many respects. The second book you'll be working from is Karen Seacombe's So You Think I Drive a Cadillac. This is the cover of the last edition of that book also. However, the publisher is doing a funny thing with this text right now and isn't publishing it in softcover anymore. It's published on demand. If you get a hard copy of the book, it's going to come with a cover that doesn't look like this, and it's going to look almost kind of like a workbook or something. But rest assured, it is the full textbook. It's just the way the publisher is producing this book right now. I think this is a very, very valuable book because it supplements what Phyllis Day tells you in her textbook looking at the history of social welfare by looking at the experiences of modern day welfare recipients. And you really get a look at their lives and what motivates the decisions that they make or don't make. And also compares our system to the systems of other nations around the world. And so this is something that's very valuable to look at. I think you'll find her book is very interesting and encourages you to use critical thinking and understanding what goes on in the lives of social welfare recipients. The third book is an old book. Some of you may have read this in high school, The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. You see it was first published well over 100 years ago now. In fact, it's a part of the public domain. And you can find this book online for free. The only thing I encourage you, if you do that, is make sure you get an unabridged version, not an abridged version, because you want to read the whole book, the full writing, to get the impact of what the author wants you to see here. Now, Upton Sinclair, 100 years ago, was kind of like Michael Moore in those days, except, he wasn't making movies, he was writing books. He was one of the persons that you may remember studying about who were called the muckrakers. These were individuals who were stirring things up and causing the American public to recognize some of the issues and the problems with society that we had 100 and some years ago. And doesn't Michael Moore do that with his movies today as well? And as Michael Moore is detested by many persons today, you can rest assured that Upton Sinclair and the other muckrakers were also troubling to the status quo and to those who were in positions of some privilege. But this book is very, very useful in understanding what was going on in America at that time. At the turn of the last century, there really weren't very many social welfare programs at all, virtually no government programs. And so this gives you a look at what it would be like with very little government intervention in terms of social services, government protections in the workplace, no worker unions, and those kinds of things. And you see how pure capitalism takes advantage of the worker and why it's necessary to have government intervention in the workplace and in the economic system, and also to have social welfare programs to assist those who are marginalized by the economic system. This is a very good book. Now, it starts out kind of heavy, and the first perhaps 7,500 pages are kind of thick, and you may not want to keep reading the book because of it, but please push through that section and you'll begin to see what the book is all about. It is a novel, so it's fictional, but I believe what he does is he collapses the experiences of many immigrants, and he spent quite a bit of time studying the meatpacking industry and the immigrant experience when he wrote this book, so it is really based on reality, even if it is a novel. We're going to read this book somewhere in the first 6 weeks of the course, and you'll do a short paper, a reaction paper on this, and then you can set that book aside. And, well, I hope you won't forget it, but you won't have to refer back to that any longer during the semester. Be sure you look at the course syllabus. You'll find the link at one of the top items in the course menu. There is a link there when you click on that course menu item that allows you to get the Word version of the syllabus. I encourage you to print a copy out so that you have that on hand at all times. Most of what you need to know about the course is in here. There may be some changes necessary from time to time depending upon what comes up during the semester, and any changes that occur in the syllabus will probably be very small, very obscure, but I will be sure to note them in the syllabus section in the course menu, and will send you an announcement of any changes that occur. But it's your responsibility to know what's in that syllabus, so you want to make sure you read it front to back. This tells you a little bit about how you're going to earn points in this course, and there are 745 points altogether, not including some bonus points that you'll be able to get. Our grading scale in the course is a standard grading scale, I think pretty much used around the university, as you can see here. The Grade Center in Blackboard is going to tell you sometimes that you have a certain percentage when you're doing better. I have students contact me from time to time saying they've done everything that they've been required to do in a course, and yet Blackboard tells them that they only have a B. And that's because Blackboard is figuring averages of grading elements that you may not have had an opportunity to contribute to yet. Also, Blackboard has difficulty understanding extra credit points, which you'll be able to earn, and I'll talk about that a little bit here too. So don't worry too much about what Blackboard tells you is your grade. Pay attention to your total points, the total number of points you're earning against the total number of points you could have earned, and that will tell you how you're doing. I'm the one that determines the final grade, not Blackboard. So your first item is participation and attendance, and you attend a course by, this is an asynchronous course, in case you haven't noticed that. That means we don't have any class meetings. And so everything you do during the week in your own time, at times that are convenient to you. Now, I want to stress to you that your work should be done during each week. So every Sunday morning, a new material will be opened up for the following week, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later in this talk. But what I want you to know is that you should strive to get as much as you can done each week within the week. This is not something where you can wait all semester to do your work. You need to work week by week by week in order to get the full grade points that you want. And this is one of the ways you're going to attend to the class, is to be participating fully in all the activities as we go along. Blackboard does tell me when you have accessed the course, and so I can track that also, and we'll make use of that as necessary in order to determine your points here. If you haven't done discussion boards before, they're really pretty easy to navigate. I believe, in fact, there are some items in the Start Here menu and in the first week's content that explain a little bit about how to do your discussion boards. But I'll give you a prompt. Occasionally, there'll be 2 prompts. Those are the extra credit points. And you respond to the question in that prompt with an original response of at least 150 words. That's not a lot. 150 words really isn't a lot, but at least 150 words, more if you can come up with that. And then later on, you're going to go back and you're going to read some of your classmates' posts and respond to at least 2 of those original responses by your classmates. So that's where the discussion comes in. Basically, you respond to things that your classmates say. You're not limited to 2, but you should have at least 2 to get to full credit for the week's discussion boards. And so your reading assignments and new discussion board prompts will open on Sunday mornings and sometime during the week, actually preferably after you have done the readings and after you've listened to the lectures that are in the course. You respond to the discussion board prompt and post that. And then after a few days, go back in and see what your classmates have written also. Some of them are probably responded to your post also. And make at least 2 responses to other classmates' posts. So your original post should be done by the following Sunday. That's a week to do that. And then by the Thursday after that, you should have responded to at least 2 of your classmates' posts. So the discussion board really is kind of an activity that stretches out over, 11 days or so, maybe 13 days or 12 days as you look at your calendar, from one Sunday through Thursday following the next Sunday. And then I will generally go in sometime Friday, Saturday, or Sunday after that Thursday and grade those discussion boards. And so you'll see there how your points. If you follow the instructions, 150 words or more in your original post and respond to two classmates, you'll get your 10 points for your discussion boards each week. Now, one thing about classmate response to classmates posts, you don't have to write 150 words in all your responses to classmates posts. That's just for your original post. But your responses should be meaningful. And so that means you don't just say, I agree, or no, I don't agree. But you talk about, if you don't agree, you say why. If you do agree, you add something to that. You talk about it a little bit. You don't just say good post or bad post, yes or no. Okay, something substantial. It doesn't have to be 150 words long, but it should contribute to a discussion. Next are journals, and this is something you'll do every 2 weeks. You won't find a journal in this week's weekly course content, but you will next week. And what this does is it encourages you to look in the media, in the news, television, newspapers, magazines, online sources, wherever you get your news these days, and find an item that relates to social welfare or to human rights or civil rights, women's rights, racial equity. I mean, there's any number of things. As far as social welfare goes, it isn't just welfare. It also includes like food stamps, SNAP, also includes education funding. It includes, anything where the government is involved in contributing to the welfare of individuals. And so you look for an article about that, and then you're going to write up a brief summary in your own words of that news item. And then after that, you're going to post your response to that news item. That response should be a minimum of 200 words because this is worth 20 points, not 10 points. So your response to that should be a minimum of 200 words. And then that's in your journal post. Now, your journal is private. So while the discussion board is open to the entire classroom, your journal is just between you and me. So you can, post things a little more personally in here, a little more directly perhaps, than you might want to in the discussion board forums, where everyone's going to read them. And so this is sort of your opportunity to, I kind of look at it this way, that the discussion board is sort of like, classroom discussion about an item that I mention and people talk about it together. The journal is sort of like you come up to me at break or at the end of class and you take me by the elbow and say, hey, Bill, I'd like to talk with you about something. And you pull me aside and we talk about it. And so this is sort of an opportunity to speak with me or share with me privately what your thoughts are about items that are going on in the news. Again, you cite your source for your news article, whatever that is. You write a brief summary of the news item in your own words. Don't copy and paste, in your own words, shows me that you've digested the news item that you're writing about. And then a separate paragraph that is a minimum of 200 words where you respond to that news item, to whatever is going on there. You tell me what you think about it or you feel about it. Okay? Pretty simple. There is an item in your course menu called Board and Journal Grading Guidelines, and also an item in this week's course content that says how your posts will earn points. They go into some detail about how you can get your full credit for your discussion boards and for your journal posts. In fact, there's also, particularly in the Board and Journal Grading Guidelines, there is an excellent example of a journal that is done the way I want it done, formatted the way I want it, and you should look for that there and try to conform your journal posts to that. For discussion boards, I look at this as a discussion among you and your peers in the classroom. So that means, first of all, keep your posts respectful. Don't say something that's going to be offensive to other people. We're not arguing things out. We're discussing them. Always keep the fact that other people are reading your posts in mind. Again, this is a discussion between you and your classmates. I will monitor that. Occasionally, I'll chime in on those discussion boards, but I won't respond to all your discussion board posts. However, your journal posts, I'm going to try to respond every week to each of you personally based upon what you write. So that's where you can look for comments from me directly. It gives me an opportunity to talk to you a little more directly about course material. For the jungle, you'll have read this book by the end of week 6. I believe the paper is due at the beginning of week 7. Yes, so you've Within the first 6 weeks, you'll have read this book, submit a paper, and there will be an item that will open up in the assignments link in the course menu where you can submit this paper, 3 to 5 pages long, or about 1,200 to 1,500 words. That's if you use 12-point font, and I personally prefer 1.5 line spacing. I'm not going to fuss over that, but just to give you an idea, when I say 3 to 5 pages, I'm really talking about 1,200 to 1,500 words. And if you do the 12-point font, 1.5 line spacing, that's about what you'll come up with. And your paper should give a brief summary of the book. I don't need to know everything that happens to Jurgis and Ona and Maria and all the people in that book because I've read it before. But just, again, a brief summary of the important points in the book shows me that you've read the book. A full credit paper will also describe your reaction to the book, and it will also tie it into a few of the course concepts that we've studied up to that point. Again, you'll submit this paper through a link that will become available to you through the assignments item in the course menu. It's not visible right now, but it will be in a few weeks. The big project for the semester is your term research project, and you will be paired with 1 or 2 other people to research a particular position regarding a controversial issue in today's society. So let's say healthcare reform. Your group may be posed the question, in fact, there will probably be a group that has this question: should the United States adopt a single-payer healthcare system? And there will be a side that responds to that question with yes, and there's a side in your group that will respond with a no. Each position, yes and no, will have anywhere from 2 to 3 students assigned to dig up research related to each position and present that in the paper. Now, you're not arguing your point. You're simply finding the information that people who support single-payer healthcare and people who oppose single-payer healthcare, what it is that they rely upon information-wise to justify their stance. So it's not a persuasive paper. It's a research paper that tells the reader, this is what people who think yes to this question say or think, and this is what people who think no base their opinion on. Altogether, there will be 2 or 3 people studying one side, 2 or 3 people studying the other position, and altogether, those 4 or 5 people are going to present one paper to me. So you're going to have 4 or 5 people working together produce a paper that should be about 12 to 15 pages long. It's about 5,000 words, I think. There are specifics. There will be specifics when the groups are assigned to tell you how to do this and what's expected as far as the paper goes. This is going to require you to work together with other people, and you're not going to have the opportunity to even meet face-to-face, even if you were all in the same community. So you're going to have to do this online. And there's lots of different ways you can do this. Blackboard, I will give you a group work site that will give you plenty of tools to use to communicate with each other, including your own private discussion board. By private, of course, that doesn't mean I don't get to see it, but other students in the class don't. So it would be just between you, your group members, and me. There are other tools in that work site that you'll use in order to put this paper together. Oftentimes there are procrastinators in this project, and I want to tell you, if you tend to procrastinate and put things off to the last minute, this is not the place to do that. You will drive your teammates crazy. They will be writing to me saying, Mary isn't participating, what do I do about this? And all those kinds of things, and it just creates a bad scene. And so when you are assigned a group, and that will be probably somewhere around week 3 or 4, you get a message saying you're assigned to this group, and you'll know what your topic is then. The first thing you want to do is go in and find who your other group members are and send them an email with your contact information and be available to them throughout the semester. Respond to them when they write to you. I have seen groups do this project beautifully. They work together very well, and they come up with a wonderful project, a wonderful product in the end. I have also had a few groups where there's constant complaints about people not contributing. Don't be that group. In order to encourage group cooperation and communication, I have built in a few deadlines for your group, and one of them is mentioned here where your written portion of the larger paper is due to your group, not to me, but to your group, 1 week before the deadline that the final project is to be turned into me. So you have a deadline to work there, and that's because your group's going to have to pick somebody to edit your paper. one or two people to put all these different projects together so that they read like one paper. I don't want 4 or 5 single papers put together. I want one paper. And so good editing is going to be required. And so that's why I say everybody needs to turn in the written portion to the group so that whoever is doing the editing has time to do the editing. Who does that is something that you all are going to decide, and I would encourage you to decide that early in the semester. Perhaps you'll want to give the editor a lighter load in terms of research in order to make up for the work that will be involved with that. The other piece to this to ensure communication is that there will be dates that you'll be given in the announcement of the groups and when they're being assigned, 2 dates by which you need to have made your presence known in your group's work site in Blackboard. I will go in and look and see evidence that you're communicating with your group members. Now, the place you probably want to do that is in the group's discussion board. Could be in your file exchange where you can exchange information and what you've written and things as well. There's other places, but probably a discussion board is where you're going to want to leave your footprint in that group work site. If you want to work in Google Groups, that's fine, Google Docs or whatever. But mind you, I can't see that, and I have to see evidence of your participation and communication with your group members in order for you to earn these points, these 2 20-point items. And so you'll have to do that in your work group. More on that when the project is assigned. Once the papers are done, of course, I'm going to read them and grade them and return them to you in your group site. But also, I am going to take a clean copy, that's your finished copy, and post it in a forum for your classmates to read. And so you all will be reading each other's papers later in the semester and participating in a discussion board about the topic. Now, you don't need to be critiquing sentence structure and punctuation and all those kinds of things, unless it's just too difficult to read that you couldn't understand the topic. But really, I want you discussing the topic, not the finished work product, because it's up to me really to do all that other stuff. So the 50 points for those peer reviews, that will be later in the semester. There will be 2 tests during the semester, I think both about Day and the Seacom books. The first test will be worth 40 points, the second 60 points. These are not big grading items, but they are items that are worth your attention. Now, the way I work tests is that they will open up, and you'll know when they're opening. It's week 7 and week 15, as I recall. And on Thursday of week 7, let's say, test 1 will open, and will stay open for the rest of that week, plus the entire following week, plus the Sunday of the week after that. So for 11 days, that test will be available to you to take. Of course, you can use open book. The only thing I ask of you is that you not work with another person to answer your questions. This should be your own answers, but you can use whatever notes and books and whatever you want, to answer the questions. Okay. No monitoring, no proctoring, no need to have somebody watch you take the test. Just do your own test. But they must be concluded within those 11 days, and they're timed. But you have ample time to finish these tests. When you open the test, you have to complete them. You can't open it and then go and cook dinner and come back later on, because the test will have closed. They will close at the end of the timed period, and you'll know how long you have timed when you open the test. If you don't like your first score, you can go back and take the test a second time. And the higher of your 2 scores will be the score that's recorded. Keep in mind, though, that you'll get a different test because Blackboard's going to mix up the questions and will bring up other questions you didn't have in the first test. So you won't be taking the same test a second time, but you'll be taking a second test on the same material. You got a chance to improve your score if you want to in that way. I try to make these as user-friendly as possible. When you open Blackboard, you probably notice it opens to announcements. Every time I post an announcement, I will also send an email to you that will go to the address the university has for you. So please pay attention to those emails when you get them. But when the course opens up, make sure that the announcements are ones that you've seen already. New announcements should be opening at the top of the page. And if you're seeing announcements that you didn't get an email, you need to check with the university IT, because there may be something wrong with your email address. By the way, announcements, again, going back to the classroom model, this is me saying, before we get started this week, there's something I need to tell you that's very important. So pay attention to what's in there. It's my way of communicating things you need to know. The most important link, as far as I'm concerned, in the course is weekly course content. So each week, the work that you have assigned, the readings that are assigned, the activities that you may have to do, your discussion boards, your journals, your tests, all those things will open through that weekly course content. When you click on that link, you'll see a new week open every Sunday morning, and make sure you read every slide each week to the end. Now, this is pretty much what weekly course content is going to have at a minimum every week. An opening slide that I write something about. There'll be a slide that tells you what the learning objectives are for the week. There'll be another slide that tells you what your assigned readings and activities are for the week. Then you'll see anywhere from 2 to 4 recorded lectures. Occasionally, there are a couple weeks where you're not really going to have a recorded lecture. Instead, you're going to be watching other film items. And don't worry about that till you get there. But there's going to be something recorded for you to watch every week. Now, my lectures, they're not 10-minute lectures. These are ones that really, this is, if you were in a classroom with me, you would be spending 2 3/4 hours with me in the classroom for this 3-credit course. And so in some weeks, those lectures are really going to take up that amount of time. Other weeks, they won't take that long, but just understand that some of these lectures are going to take some time. So budget your time to listen to these lectures. They're very important. Following the lectures, you'll find a link to go to the discussion board for the week. You'll find then after that a link to the journal every other week. You'll find then a page that gives you the lecture slides in PDF format if you want to print them out and save them. And I've taken the background colors and things out of the PDF slides here in this particular section so that if you want to print them out, it doesn't use up all your color ink. One of my students pointed that out to me a couple semesters ago, and so I've tried to correct that since. And then there'll be a closing slide where these are things that I write too, so I hope you'll take the time to read them because I really put some thought into these opening and closing slides. Some things I want you to think about as you close out your studies for the week. And then other slides as appropriate, like the tests will appear in weekly course content, course evaluation later on, those kinds of things. That list there is pretty much available to you every week, so look for these slides. Most of you are aware, I believe, of the fact that communication on the web is much, much more complicated than it is in person because we don't have the opportunity to read body language. We can't see facial expressions. We can't hear a tone of voice. We can't see if a person's smiling or frowning, if their face is red, if they're relaxed and calm as they say things or not. All these kinds of things, when we're talking with somebody, communicate with us and add to the words that are shared among us so that we interpret those words differently based on all these other things that we see. Online, you're reading words, and that's pretty much all you have. So sarcasm does not translate very well. If you're trying to be humorous when you're sarcastic, it oftentimes reads offensively. And I've had students complain to me. In fact, I've had to go to the Title IX office, the office about sexual harassment that deals with sexual harassment and sexual assault, with some complaints with students because they felt that the comments that the students were making were sexually suggestive and inappropriate. In every case, I believe the students were intending to be funny, but they weren't funny in this kind of setting. And so be careful what you say. Remember that there are other people from different backgrounds that are reading what you write. And if you haven't interacted with people from other racial groups much, if you haven't interacted with people from the LGBTQ population before, if you don't have much of an opportunity to talk with older people or younger people, if you haven't spoken with individuals who are from other nations or who belong to other religions that are minority groups, those individuals may very well be reading your posts now. So keep that in mind when you make these posts. Be respectful, be courteous, say what you want to say, but say it in a way that other people can digest it calmly and think about what you have to say. Never threaten other people. Don't post disparaging comments, sexually suggestive comments, those kinds of things. None of that has any place here. Also, please do not use internet shortcut abbreviations like LOL and UR and LMAO and smiley faces and those things. They have no place in a university classroom post. I want you to communicate professionally and don't make use of those abbreviations. These aren't text messages. Finally, if somebody says something that troubles you, please let me know, but also please try to be forgiving when individuals make mistakes, because usually they're not intended to be derogatory or offensive, as you may read them to be. For this week's discussion board, your post is really going to be an icebreaker kind of exercise, and I want you to write about yourself. Again, a post of 150 words or more that tells us a little bit about who it is that is on the other side of the keyboard here. And here's an example of some things you might write about, but write about whatever whatever you think would be interesting to others, and tells us a little bit about who you are and what's important to you. Maybe also what brings you to the social work or social welfare class. I encourage you to include photos in your posts, particularly in the early posts. They're not required. It doesn't have to be a photograph of yourself. It can be a photograph of other important people, your pets, your home, some places you've been, things that you like. But photographs liven up the posts, and it just makes it a more pleasant experience. So I encourage you to consider adding those to your posts as well. So this particular discussion board, your original post of 150 words or more, should be completed and posted in the week 1 discussion board spot by next Sunday night at around midnight. And then in a few days after that time, go back in and read some of your classmates' posts, really, because you're supposed to learn about other classmates. Find a couple you want to say something to, you can connect with or whatever, and respond to them for your full 10 points. Also, in the next week, now you don't have a journal, you will have one in week 2. So be looking for current events related to social welfare, civil or human rights, things like social programming, the budget, education, civil rights, racism, sexism, healthcare reform, immigration, same-sex marriage, LGBTQ rights, on and on and on. With the change in administration in January 2021, there's going to be a lot to write about. And I have a feeling the next year or two are going to be very, very important in all of these areas, very, very interesting. And so I don't think you'll have any difficulty finding items to write about in your journals. And remember, pick one of those stories. Remember to give me the source so I know where to go to look to find that source, to find that information. Summarize the story in your own words, and then write a reaction paragraph, a separate paragraph of 200 words or more about that particular news item. About sources, please try to find sources that are reputable. This is a good exercise for you to figure out how to find good sources. There are a lot of sources out there that give you trash and call it information. A lot of sources out there that give you only one side of a story. So just be aware of that as you fish about for information. In the readings, the first couple chapters in the day text, you're going to be reading about the 9 American values that she identifies. Pay particular attention to them and consider how your own attitudes and beliefs and values are reflected in those American values. Phyllis Day says these are values that all of us have as a part of our being. We may not intellectually believe everything in those values, but she believes that because we're American, we have been raised with these values in the fabric of our souls. Something to keep in mind, that we may not even be conscious of them, but that they operate in all of us. And so pay attention to these values. We're going to be calling up these values and referring back to them throughout the semester. That's all for now. I hope that this has been helpful to you. And if you have questions, you have my email addresses, you've got my phone number. Please feel free to contact me with any questions to follow up. Otherwise, remember next Sunday morning to look for week 2's content and for my recorded lectures there. And I'm wishing you a great semester ahead and hope that you find the material to be something that's going to be very useful to you in the years ahead. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye for now.